A very good morning. I'd like to wish to my lecturer, Dr. Azina Kamalbarin. We are here from Group 9 today. We're going to present about Chapter 18, Community and Ecosystem Ecology. As we know, this is the last chapter of our syllabus, so pay attention, guys. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself, which is Jerika Mekanish. My group names Nurul Hikmah, Anis Nadira, Aina Radullah. So this is the first subtopic of this chapter, Ecology of Communities, and the learning outcomes are to recognize the features of a biological community and species richness, to describe the factors that define an organism's ecological niche within its community, and to identify how the interactions among species organize a community. And today I'll be presenting about the community structure, species composition, and species diversity. So let's get into our presentation. So firstly, as we know, what forms a community? So it's a population of different species interacting with one another within the same environment. And in this case, a community can differ from its size, and it's very difficult for us to determine whether a community is going to begin or going to end. So there are two characteristics that we can use to determine to compare between communities, which is species composition and species diversity. So first off, species composition, also known as species richness, is a listing of various species in the community. This means that is the list of species that we can find in the community. Now moving on to species diversity is about the species richness and also the relative abundance of different species. Now what does relative abundance means? Relative abundance of different species actually means that the more even distribution of different kind of species around the community. Now we know that communities can differ in their composition due to different amount of species in their community, and the diversity also can be described by richness of species and the relative abundance. Now talking about species composition, let me give you an example. Let's just say we compare the community between a coniferous forest and a tropical rainforest. So we can definitely name more species that we can find in a tropical rainforest, such as monkeys, jaguar, tapir, bats, sloth, compared to in the coniferous forest where it's like squirrel, moose, bear, red fox, and wolf, because it's like a cold place, and the tropical rainforest is a suitable place for many more animals to live. So therefore, when we can find more species and there's a more higher listing of various species in the species composition, therefore we can say that tropical rainforests have a higher species richness. Now moving on to species diversity. Species diversity is a measure of species in the community and the relative abundance of different species, which we can also categorize as when greater the species richness and the more even the distribution, the greater the species diversity. So let me give you an example. If you're walking through a botanical garden, and then there is about 18 plants of sunflower, and there's about 2 plants of hibiscus. So while strolling, it's very hard for us to actually find a hibiscus compared to a sunflower because of the amount of hibiscus in the community. So it is not evenly distributed. But if let's just say in another sense where there is 18 sunflower plants and 20 hibiscus plants, there is a great even distribution between these 2 plants, and then for the eyes of us humans walking through there, we can see it's very diverse because we can see equal amount of sunflowers and equal amount of hibiscus. So therefore it exists a greater species diversity. So now moving on to habitat and ecological niche. As we know, habitat is a place where an organism lives and reproduces, whereas ecological niche, I would like to start with what does niche actually mean. Niche is a role a species plays in its community, and this includes the methods a species uses to meet energy, nutrient, and survival demand. And under niche, there is 2 ways, a 2 niche, which is a fundamental niche and realized niche. So fundamental niche is when all abiotic conditions are present, when adverse biotic conditions are absent, and realized niche is when set of conditions which exist in nature when adverse abiotic are present. So let me give you an example. So as you can see the diagram above, there are 2 types of barnacles that exist, which is Stalamus and Melanus. I'm sorry for my pronunciation, but Stalamus barnacle can only survive during the high tide. So during the high tide, it meets its fundamental niche. So it tends to reproduce and conquer the area. Whereas balance, when there is a low tide, when from high tide becomes low tide, the balance suddenly meets its realized niche and it starts to reproduce and conquer the place. That's all from me. I'd like to pass to my group. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day to everyone. My name is Aina Nabila binti Samri and my metric number is AS12183. Today I will present about competition between population. So I will explain to you guys about competitive exclusion principle and character displacement. So competitive exclusion principle state that no two species can indefinitely occupy same niche at the same time. It states that two species that compete for the exact same resources cannot stably coexist. As a consequence, competing related species often evolve distinguishing characteristics in areas where they are coexist. So what is resource partitioning? Resource partitioning is the division of resources in order to decrease competition between two species. As we can see in the diagram on the slide, there are different types of birds living on the same niche. So they have same resources such as food. So to avoid competition, they are being separated from each other, and that is what we call resource partitioning. Character displacement. Characteristics tend to become more divergent when populations belong to the same community than when they are isolated. Example, barnacles on the Scottish coast. For example, small barnacle lives on the upper side of the zone, while the larger barnacle lives on the lower side of the zone. So it is a phenomenon in which two species that live together in the same environment tend to diverge in those characteristics that overlap. Competitor species can have evolutionary effect on each other that result in ecological character displacement. Divergence is particularly there is resource exploiting traits such as size, shape, or bits. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Anis Nadira, AS11512. So let's moving on to prey-predator interactions. Predator populations can be affected by the density of prey populations. In other words, these interactions is a two-way street, which increase in predator population size is dependent on an increase in prey population size. Let's look at this graph. Let's look at this graph. We have snowshoe hare here as prey, and this is Canada lynx as the predator. Okay, series of pigs. Here is pigs and valleys. Here is valleys. May result with the predator or lynx populations lagging slightly behind that of prey, the snowshoe hare prey. Okay. Next, moving on to prey defenses. Prey defenses is actually a mechanism that thwart the possibilities of being eaten by the predators. So, here we have heightened senses, speed, protective armor, spines, thorns, chemical defenses, tails or appendages that break off, camouflage, and warning colorations. Let's look at heightened senses first. For heightened senses, we have rabbit here. It has big ears that are really sensitive to any movement, sound, or vibrate. For speed, we have the antelope. Looks like this leopard cannot catch with this antelope speed. For protective armor, spines or thorns, we have porcupines. Don't get wrong, porcupines cannot shoot its enemy, but these sharp quills will get detached easily when being touched. Okay, for chemical defenses, skunk will spray its stink gas whenever humans or its enemy gets too close to it. Tails or appendages that break off. Common example for tails for this point is lizard. This tail will wiggle on the ground and distract their predator. So next point is camouflage. Camouflage is actually the ability to blend into the background. This chameleon will shift its skin into the background where it meets its rival. So for warning coloration, we have brought here blue color less attractive, but be careful, they might be dangerous. Let's look at mimicry. Mimicry is resemblance of one species to another possesses an overt anti-predator defense. Once animal experiences the defense of the model organism, it remembers the coloration and avoids all animals that look similar. Mimicry can be categorized into two types. First, Mullerian mimic, and second is Batesian mimic. Okay, for Mullerian mimic, we have yellow jacket wasp here. They have contrasting black and yellow color to warm predators and also have the ability to sting. Of course, it is unpalatable. So, they are harmful to potential predator. So, moving on to Batesian mimic. We have flower fly. Flower fly also have contrasting black and yellow color just like yellow jacket wasp. But they don't have the ability to sting, makes them harmless to potential predator and of course lack of defense. And mimicry will make potential predator also think that flower fly is unpalatable just like yellow jacket wasp. Turning our attention to symbiotic relationship, this relationship involves two species. First, we have parasitism, second, mutualism, and third, commensalism. Let's keep it short and precise. For parasitism, is when parasite derives nourishment from another called host. First, one will get benefits, but the others will gain harm. For fleas on top of the dog, fleas will get nourishment from the dog, but the dog will feel itchy. Second, mutualism. It is association between organisms of two different species. Both will gain benefits. For example, sea anemones and crabs. Sea anemones here, and this is crab. Crab will use thin tentacles from sea anemones to protect itself and gain food. But at the same time, crab also provide free ride for the sea anemones. Next is commensalism. It is a relationship between two species. One species benefited while the other has no effect. For example, cattle egrets and African Cape buffalo. This is cattle egrets and this is African Cape buffalo. These egrets usually get near to the Cape buffalo because this buffalo will flush away their enemies, their prey such as insects or other animals from vegetation. But this interaction also can turn to mutualism when cattle egrets remove ectoparasite from the buffalo. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning everyone. My name is Nurul Hikmah binti Jaslim and my matrix number is AS11514. Now we're going to proceed with the community development. Now, upon completing this subtopic, hopefully students are able to choose the correct sequence of events that occur during ecological succession and compare the two types of ecological succession. Ecological succession. It is a change in a community involving a series of species replacements. It can be categorized into two types, which are primary succession and secondary succession. Primary succession is the formation of soil from exposed rock due to abiotic factors like wind, water, minerals, and temperature. It occurs in areas where there is no base soil, such as following volcanic eruption and glaciers retreat. Glaciers retreat is the condition where the ice melts quicker than the snowfall can accumulate and form new glacial ice. Secondary succession, on the other hand, is a disturbance-based succession in which there is progressive change. For example, from grass to shrubs to a mixture of shrubs and trees. Okay? Why it is called as a disturbance-based succession? Because It happens in an area which was previously occupied by living things, but then the area was disturbed by events such as tsunami, flood, or even forest fire, and then the area was recolonized following the disturbance. So the first producer to inhabit a community after a disturbance are pioneer species. Pioneer species would grow after a disturbance and then die, and then they will form leaf mold that will make new soil for the next species of plants to develop, and then that thing will somehow contribute to the initial stage of secondary succession. Now, let's look at stages of primary succession. The first stage is the rock or lichen stage. So lichen will grow or develop on rocks without soil, but then it will break down the rocks into soil, making it suitable for another plant to grow there. So lichens and mosses invade the area left vacant by the retreating glacier. And then the second stage is a shrub stage, where small bushes grow in the newly abandoned soil. And the third stage, lower tree stage, the fast-growing older trees help build the soil nutrients and water content. And then the fourth stage, high tree stage, the improved soil conditions allow the community to develop and become mature. So this is an example of primary succession following a glacier retreat. Now, let's look at the stages of secondary succession. So this is an example of secondary succession in a forest. Okay, so we all know that the initial stage begins with short-lived species such as grasses. Grasses will then decompose and adding new nutrients or adding more nutrients to the soil, making it suitable for low shrubs to develop, and then high shrubs until the last replacements done by high trees. Only then we can say that they have reached the stability of the climax, the stability of the community. Okay, which we call as climax community. Now, what is climax community? It is a term proposed by F.E. Clements. It means a mature and stable community, and it is the final stage of both successions. Okay, it will remain relatively unchanged until it got destroyed by an event. Models about succession. Models about succession are basically the theories made in order to explain the succession in a better way, how it becomes that way. So the first one is the facilitation model. It states that each stage facilitated the invasion and replacement by organism of the next stage. For example, we know that shrubs will not grow unless the dune grass forms soil that make it suitable for the shrubs to grow. So meaning that each group will prepare the way for the next species to develop. Okay. For inhibition model, it states that colonies hold on to their space and inhibits the growth of other plants until the colonies die or are damaged. I think it's all clear. Okay. So for tolerance model, it predicts that different types of plants can colonize an area at the same time. Sheer chance will determine which seeds will arrive first, and then the successional stages may reflect the length of time it takes for a particular species to develop and mature. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
So guys, where are we going right now? Woohoo! Let's go and cycle, and then we will bring you guys to tour around UPM 7:30 a.m. in the morning. Actually, it's almost 8 a.m. So how do you feel? You feel great? How about you, Aina? Do you know how to cycle? Okay. So guys, almost 25 minutes of walking, and we are walking to its destination. I'm recording, by the way. So we're almost here to our bicycles. We're gonna book it for one day. Here we are. Jaya's missing, by the way. Plants. See guys, our bicycles are there. So we're gonna book them for a day. Hey meow, so are you lost? Bye. So these are the bicycles. So we don't have to put much effort. We're just gonna, push the button here. I don't know. Right? Let's go, baby. Oh, are you guys ready? Here I am. Let's go.
Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there.
Belly.
And I know when I need it, I can count on you.
And you can see there are a variety of plants here. Are you excited?
Yes, of course.
Are you excited, Aina? So, Dr. Jaya, there are lots of plants here. I think we are going to ask you lots of questions regarding these plants. These girls, they seem so curious about those plants. So, how do you think? Do you have any question for Dr. Jaya?
Dr. Jaya, what are these plants?
It's chili, obviously. Okay, let's move on. But we don't know the scientific name of chili plants, right? How about you, Aina? Do you have any question? Okay, good.
Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. You can count on me, cause I can count on you.
So this is the kind of view that you will be able to see here at Ladang Ten. Hi. Okay, let's move on. We are already outside Ladang Ten and now we are heading to... Let's go.
You can be the captain and I can be a first mate. You can be the chills that I feel on our first date. You can be the hero and I can be a sidekick. You can be the tear that I cry if we ever split. You can be the rain from the cloud when it's storming, or you can be the
Have you ever wondered how the forests begin? I mean the beginning of the forest. Have you ever wondered about the beginning of the forest? Well, no one wants to answer that. Let's ask Dr. Jaya.
You're the straw to my berry. You're the smoke to my high.
So we are at the Kuliah right now. My friends, obviously.
Cause you're the one for
Ooh, there.
me. And I'm the one for you, for you. You take the both of us,
Then,
us.
here goes the
We're
scene.
the perfect two.
Do you miss home, Anis?
We're the perfect two. We're the perfect two. Baby, me
Let's
and
go.
you. We're the perfect two. You can be the prince and I can be a princess. You can be the sweet tooth, I can be the dentist. You can be the shoes and I can be the laces. You can be the heart that I spill on the pages.
Satu, dua,
You
tiga.
can be the vodka and I can be the chaser. You can be the pencil and I can be the paper. You can be as cold as the winter weather, but I don't care.
See the quiz, shall we? Join us now via kahoot.it.